What's up, fight fans, Lunar Visual MMA followers? Thank you guys for tuning in. Got another fight predictions video for you guys. I know it's been a while since I did the UFC 300 video. Had a lot of stuff come up and preparing for a lot of other things. Was blessed for the opportunity to do post-fight interviews for Summit Fighting Championships. Gonna be posting more of that media soon. Right now, just trying to work out all the details of what I got planned coming up, but been very busy, so we got a part 2 of this video. I'm going to keep it quick, short, and simple. We're doing the main card from top to bottom. Been some rearrangements and some rumors and some talks, and the anticipation is building for UFC 300. So, stay tuned.
Is there no one else? Is there no one else?
Alright, so starting off the main card is Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan. Guys, talk about a high-level fight. But one thing I really haven't gone into on these videos is how I go into these predictions. So really quickly, I'm going to break down what I'm basing my decisions off of, my predictions off of, essentially, what I use to make my decision. Now, I know I'm not always right, but generally, if I have like a lot of these elements, I'll have to explain them. But if they line up, generally, it ends up going that way that I see it. But sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes I'm wrong. Going to this camera, I'm going to break it down on this camera now. I go by age, activity, and action. The 3 A's, I call them. So age being how old they are, obviously, you know, they've been in the sport a long time. That's, we know the 34, 35 curse, right? It's a real thing. It's a real thing. So that's one thing I factor. Age. Second, activity. How often are they fighting? Are they fighting 3 times a year? Are they fighting once a year? Have they not fought in the past 2 years? You know, what are we looking at as far as activity? If you're not in there fighting at all, unless you're John Jones, you're most likely not going to be very successful, or it's not going to go your way. You know, it's going to be very sloppy performance at the very least. And then action. What is going on in these fights? You know, what is going on in their fights? Are they finishing the fights? Are they going to decisions? Are they squeaking out split decisions? Or are they getting finishes every single time? Are they going, how often are they going to the decision? I look at their KO rate, their submission rate, decision rate. I look at all these numbers, right? That's the number aspect of it, essentially. So, going off of those 3 A's, back to this camera. Let's look at Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira, 34, but man, you could give him one of those rare passes where it's kind of hard to call. I mean, if this were just some prelim or early prelim or some contender, this is a former champ here. Okay, we're talking about a former high-level champion, high-level striking, high-level grappling, high-level jiu-jitsu, high level of a lot of things. So when we're looking at Charles Oliveira, there's a lot to look at. How he finishes fights, right? Let's look at his age, 34, KO rate, 26%, submission rate, 63%. That is very high. And out of 30 fights, 19 of them end by submission. And then 10% decision rate. I really don't see Charles Oliveira going to another decision in the rest of his career. To be completely honest, I don't. The way he fights, the way he leaves it all out there, I just don't see it. That's just me. I could be wrong though, but that's how I see it. And then you look at his last couple fights. He fought twice in 22, you know, beat Gaethje for the vacant lightweight since he missed weight. But then he lost to Islam, arm triangle choke in the second round, and he comes back and bounces back quick against Beneil Dariush. TKO in the first round. This guy is just, he bounces back. I mean, other than the Islam loss, he was on a 12 fight, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 fight win streak. Come on, guys. This guy is unheard. People like this are kind of unheard of. It doesn't happen a lot. And yeah, he fought once last year, but he was recovering from a loss. You got to think of the context too. So in terms of activity, yes, he only fought once last year, but he fought once, had a very successful win. But think about it. He's going to fight for the title fight the contender title fight. And, you know, you saw he got cut before the Islam rematch. And he said, nope, not risking it. He's taking minimal risk. It's not just a sense of, oh, I'm going to wait to fight. I don't feel like fighting. I think for him, he's really taking it seriously. He's not taking any chances of risking his body at all or risking a loss at all. And if he has to wait longer to get back to Islam, he doesn't mind that, it seems, because
that's fucking illegal.
He's overall, I think he's trying to take care of his body. He's 34 years old. I mean, injuries happen. He just got cut on the eye. Imagine he's trying to mitigate losing due to something happening in camp. So I think Oliveira has been very, very decisive with how he is trying to make his way back to another title shot, which I'm leaning towards him. We're going to go into Arman in a second. But Charles Oliveira finishes fights choking people out. That's usually how it ends. He usually has a great stand-up. It can go back and forth, and he can get the worst end of it. But when he hits you and you're vulnerable, you might want to watch your back because he's going to take it. That's generally what happens. So I think that's how he would finish this fight. Arman's a very talented striker, very talented, and has good takedown defense. So, and Arman's not an aggressive guy either, wrestling-wise or takedown-wise. I'll pull those stats up in a second, but he doesn't push the takedowns as much as someone like Oliveira or try to get in the clinch at all really as much. That's Oliveira. Let's go to Arman now. Looking at Arman, he is 28 years old. 21-3. Let's look at age, right? So he is, I just said it, 28 years old, young, prime years for him. That's a good sign right there. Activity, fought twice in 23. I'd say that's pretty good. Fought Joaquim Silva, Beneil Dariush, top guys, and then fought 3 times in 22. So this year needs to be his run, I would think, but been fairly active. Also decisive too. You know, being in the top 15, you have to be decisive. Still need to be active, but decisive and not trying to take too many fights. You take too many fights, you take the wrong fight at the wrong time when you're hurt or whatever, it could be career changing. So he's been active. 42% KO rate, 23% submission rate, 33% decision rate. We look at how he finishes fights, it's pretty balanced. I think we can exclude the decision factor here. Oliveira likes to go out on his shield. Come on, guys. When does Oliveira like to go to decision? No, never, guys. Come on. You've seen his fights. Do Bronx don't go to no decision. I'm using that later. Anyways, so, and he's not a ground guy. I pulled up his stats yesterday, I think. Let's pull up. His takedown defense is strong, 75% on his takedown defense. This is the UFC website. And the takedown average takedowns landed per 15 minutes. 3.40. So there's that. But as far as getting a submission from it, his sub average is average submissions attempted per 15 minutes. 0. You know, I don't know if that's completely accurate. I don't know if his submissions are from his early amateur career, because let's look. He hasn't gotten a submission win since he wasn't in the UFC. Yeah, so this guy's going to stand with him. There's no way he's getting a submission, which is, people who are putting money on Arman, you better rely heavily on his striking, because his submission game isn't going to do it. He hasn't submitted anyone in the UFC. No one. And I don't think you're going to submit Charles, who is at the top of his game right now. He's got maybe another year, and then he's probably going to trickle down from that prime year of athletic ability. But Arman, really, the only way he has to finish this fight is if he can outlast Oliveira, or if he can outstrike him, which it's possible for him to outstrike him. His best road to victory, his best path to victory is on the feet. Let's be real. The numbers speak for themselves. So Arman, I mean, just looking at that right there, just looking at the numbers, I'm basing it right off of that. I mean, don't get me wrong, Arman has power. We saw what he did to Beneil Dariush, and he has speed. Same as Oliveira. They are very well versed on the feet. Both very even on the feet. And I really hope what Oliveira does is he manages to get some good exchanges in and out of the pocket, and then utilize that grappling, utilize that jiu-jitsu, because that is how Charles is going to win this fight. But if Charles just turns it into a stand and bang fight, could be dangerous. We've seen how he gets dropped quite a bit. Now, if Charles gets dropped, I don't think Arman's going to be as friendly and say, hey, stand up, like Justin Gaethje let him just stand up in a title fight. Like, what? I mean, yeah, I guess he's got the crazy jiu-jitsu, but you can land some significant ground and pound in there when they're vulnerable. There's been times where Charles has been dropped and they just automatically assume that it's a trap, where I think sometimes he's just stunned, man. He's stunned, and you got to take advantage of that. And if that happens, Charles could be out. But seeing Charles Oliveira's history and who he's fought a lot of guys like Arman. So I'm going to go with Charles Oliveira on this one. He's got the great striking and the great ground game mixed together. I think it's going to win him the fight, probably by submission, second or third round. On to the next one. So the next one is Bo Nickel and Cody Brundage technically, but I covered that one in the last video. They moved this one up to the main card, replaced Yuri and Alexander Rakic, which sucks because, I don't know, they're pushing the Bo Nickel a lot. They are, but that's a topic for another day. Justin Gaethje and Max Holloway for the BMF belt is the next fight I wanted to talk about. Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway. That's a fight, guys. Justin Gaethje and Max Holloway, apparently, according to their website, the UFC's website, it's a canceled bout. I hope that's a technical error. There was something posted saying it was a technical error, saying bout canceled, and I'm like, I'm really hoping that's just a glitch, because that's one of the best fights on the card right there, and that's a fight we want to see. The first time the BMF belt's ever being defended, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Now let's go into the age, activity, and action meter. I got to make myself an age, activity, and action meter. I'll get there one day. I'll get there. I'm gonna animate my own. But listen, let's look at Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje being a little higher up there in years. Well, him and Max are, I think Max is 32. Let's double check this, because I'm always getting the numbers wrong. Justin Gaethje's 35. I think Max is a little bit younger. Max is 32. Now, let's look at Justin Gaethje's age, which is 35. Or did I get it wrong? Yeah, 35. That's that number where you start trickling down. We all know the 35 rumor, curse, or whatever. But let's just count that in. Okay, he's 35. It's the peak, we should say. 80% KO rate, guys. 80%. 4% submission rate. 1 out of his 25 wins. I don't even think that's in the UFC. 4 decisions. Come on, guys. His nickname is the Highlight. Justin the Highlight Gaethje, okay? We know how fights end with him. But Max Holloway is also someone who's known to just absorb damage over rounds. So it's not going to be an easy fight for sure. I think it's going to go into the later rounds for sure. But let's look at the activity of Justin Gaethje. Dustin Poirier, head kick KO win. Rafael Fiziev, majority decision. Lost to Charles Oliveira in 22, but twice in 23, once in 22, once in 21. But he's being particular for sure. I mean, look at who he's fought. He's been fighting the best guys. Rafael Fiziev is a real upcoming not even a prospect, just a top 15 animal who's a machine and is a very well-versed kickboxer. It's actually, it's kind of outside the box for him to just accept those kind of fights like Dustin and Benoit Saint Denis, right? Because Benoit Saint Denis winning that fight with staph infection, but even if he didn't, still the younger, fresher guy who's coming off of 5 wins, all being finishes. Rafael Fiziev was on a streak for a little bit. Giving those guys a chance is a huge risk. If they lose, they just lost to a guy that's lower than them, younger than them, and it makes it seem like they don't have it anymore. But if they win, it's like, oh, he didn't have enough experience, right? So it's kind of like a slight LL scenario. You know what I mean? So props to him for doing that. But let's look at the activity, man. KO Dustin Poirier. Decision Rafael Fiziev. Decision Michael Chandler. I mean, his more recent fights have been decisions other than Dustin. Like Rafael Fiziev, a real well-versed striker. Michael Chandler, a guy with dynamite in his hands. Decision. So when we're talking about Justin Gaethje later in his career, he could KO Max Holloway, but Max Holloway's not the type of guy to just go out. Okay, let's look at Max Holloway's stats. 44% KO rate, still pretty high up there. 32, like we said earlier. 8% submission rate, 48% decision rate. Guys, Max takes pretty much anyone who is a well-versed challenge for him. He went to the decision with Volkanovski 3 times. That's almost an hour and 30 minutes with Volkanovski, who is a heavy hitter for sure in that division. But he took a lot of damage. If you added up over all those fights, he took a lot of damage. And he's been in there with a lot of strikers and a lot of people who can hit and throw a lot. Justin Gaethje, he's going to be the bigger man in this fight. So if Max has anything to worry about, I think it's his power and him being slightly bigger. But if Max manages his distance well, manages to use his reach really well, which is a good advantage of his, I see it going to a decision, honestly. This is a fight that will probably go to a decision, in my opinion. If you look at how Max fights, right? When he fought, just look at the 3 fights with Volkanovski. He fought a championship level fighter 3 times, lost each time, went to a decision each time. Justin Gaethje is like damn near close to being that championship level fighter, and the way Justin Gaethje's been fighting later in his career is a little bit more composed, not as crazy and buck wild. He realizes that he needs to be a little bit more composed with his striking, not gas out by the 3rd round. He needs to keep that energy. He realized that. Seeing where they're at both in their careers, I think this one's going to go to a decision, or if it's going to end late in the late rounds. But let's look at Max Holloway and what he's been up to recently. Max Holloway, coming off of the win equivalent of the Korean Zombie KO in the third round. I mean, I think Volk KO'd him in the end of the third round. They stopped it at the end of the third, the beginning of the fourth, which is weird. I would compare Volk and Max and how they strike very similar, whereas they may not be the heaviest hitters, but they're accurate and they put out quite a bit of volume. I mean, look at the Volk fight against Korean Zombie and then look at the Max Holloway fight against Korean Zombie. They practically ended around the same time. I think I even predicted it correct on Verdict on which round he would put him out. Basically, they put the Korean Zombie out at the same time, even though he was basically around the same, hadn't really improved much, kind of on his way out. They both put him out at around the end of the third, and they could have put him out way before then, but they're feeling it out with these type of people, right? So I think that's how this fight is going to go with Max and Justin. They're going to be feeling each other out, definitely landing significant stuff in the first couple rounds, but they're not going to want to go buck wild in the first couple. I don't think, at least. I think they're going to be a little bit more decisive in how they do things. And then the decision with Arnold Allen, and then you go decision with Yair Rodriguez, decision with Calvin Kattar. I mean, he's going the distance. He's got cardio for days. I think if he can outlast Justin in terms of cardio and wear him out, that could be Justin's downfall. But I say Justin Gaethje will probably take this fight, knowing how he's going to be the bigger guy, knowing how Max, when he goes to a decision with a guy 3 times who's, shorter than him and obviously more well-versed, but I just see Justin Gaethje being able to take advantage of Max Holloway. If Max Holloway can adapt, right? He can never really adapt to Volkanovski because he's eating so many significant strikes, and yeah, he'll throw some back and he'll land some more, but Justin Gaethje's got really great leg kicks, really great body kicks, really great head kicks, as we have seen. Max has really been known for really his boxing, right? Best boxer in the UFC, baby, right? Justin Gaethje's got a little bit more of a full package. Maybe not cardio-wise, but on the offense, he definitely does. So I'm going to go with Justin with this one, probably by decision. I think Max will outlast the decision. We saw what he did. Volkanovski did to him for 5 rounds, and he was still ready to go. But I think that's going to be the same case with Max. The boxing won't win you a mixed martial arts fight. Anyways, on to the next one. And now we're on to Weili Zhang and Yan Xiaonan. This is going to be a good one. Weili is one of the most talented female athletes we've seen in a while. Let's look at the age, activity, and action first. Weili, 34 years of age. Now, let's look at her activity now. Let's take a gander at the activity. Weili, she's been active twice in 22, once in 23, fighting top competition as always. Bounced back from 2 back-to-back losses against Rose Namajunas, which the second fight being a split decision. It was unfortunate that she suffered those 2 losses because rematches can make or break some people. But she finished Joanna with a spinning KO, spinning back fist, won against Carla Esparza to get the belt, and then defended it against Amanda Lemos. She's well-versed everywhere. Great wrestling, great grappling, great striking. She's got damn near the full package. I think her defense can be, when she's in there with a really talented striker, her defense can be a little loose. Needs to be tightened up a little bit, but let's look at the numbers, right? 45% KO rate, 33% submission rate, 20% decision rate. KO rate being her highest way of winning, and she'll throw a submission here and there. And she's gotten 2 submissions in the UFC. A recent one being Carla Esparza, which is a good one. That's a good one. It's recent, so we know that that's still in her arsenal, and that could still be used most likely. But this one's a little easier for me. When it comes to the women's division, you can just see the levels between certain fighters and how much of a gap there is. There isn't as much competition, especially in this division. Weili is just levels above all of these people. I mean, you could say Rose Namajunas is up there, but I think she just switched to another division. So the thing with Weili is she's just levels above everyone, and it's going to be hard for anyone to just catch up, especially now that they're getting older. I mean, Yan is 34 years old. She's been fighting for a while. Don't get me wrong. We're going to look at her stats in just a moment, but she's got power too. Don't get me wrong. But Weili is she's been at the top with the best for so long. It's hard to see anyone going past her. And we looked at the activity and the action of Weili. Now let's go into Yan. So Yan, 34 years old, 47% KO rate, 52% decision rate, 0 submissions, 0 in her entire career. But She's only lost 3 times, same as Wei Li. It's a great fight made, matchmake. They pulled the numbers up and they were like, oh, two top contenders. I mean, Yan is definitely the best contender for her at the moment right now. But let's look at activity for her. Fought once in 23, twice in 22, once in 21. So fighting at least once a year, it's acceptable. Fighting pretty good competition too. Marina Rodriguez, Mackenzie Dern, Jessica Andrade. Between Yan and Wei Li, don't get me wrong, it could be a close fight, but I think Wei Li is probably the better fighter here. We just look at who she's fought, look at her stats. She's only been KO'd once in her career and never been submitted, which is a very impressive stat to have at this far in the game where she's at. Yan's best path to victory is on the feet, and it's going to be a competitive one, but I don't see Yan outclassing Wei Li. I just don't. We've seen Wei Li on the feet with practically the best of everyone. Outside of Rose Namajunas, who she just couldn't figure out completely, she's outclassed everyone. So I'm going to give this one to Wei Li. Easier for me to choose on this one just because she's been so dominant and such high level skills and striking and everything else above. I'm going to take a well-versed person with a more impressive resume as a whole, so I'm going with Wei Li. Now we're on to the main event. Alex Bejeda, Jamal Hill. Let's talk about it. Now I'm going to this camera. Guys, this is a main event. People think Alex has obviously got the crazy power, right? But let's just talk about the caliber, the level of skill between these two. Alex has become a double champ in less than 2 years, I think, or maybe 2 years. It takes fighters a long time to get to 1 belt, but he got to 2. That takes something. And then you look at Jamal Hill. Just look at these facts real quick. Jamal Hill is the first fighter from Dana White's Contender Series to win a UFC championship. When you compare their resumes, who they fought, and how fast they got to a belt, it's very similar, which is why this is a fucking perfect matchup. Excuse my language. Why this is a perfect matchup. 2 guys who have skyrocketed to the top because of their skill set, the way they fight. It's led them to each other. People are forgetting that. Okay, they just are. They don't see Jamal Hill as the most marketable Brock Lesnar or X Factor type of guy, right? But he is a formidable opponent for Alex. A formidable opponent. Where Alex has just been practically running through everyone except for Israel. Israel is the only person he's lost to in the UFC. This is a real challenge for him. I mean, when you got a guy like Alex who's just knocking people out left and right or beating everybody, going up weight classes and beating everybody, you got to find someone who's going to give him a challenge other than Israel, who's fought like 5 times. You know, you can't make that fight a million times. It just gets old at a certain point. Jamal Hill is the perfect person for him. And that's why it's going to be such a great fight. High level, like I said. You got a younger guy too. We're going to go into age, activity, and action right now. Switching to this camera. All right, let's go to it. Pull up the facts first. Jamal Hill is 32 years old. He has a 58.3% KO rate, 41% decision rate, no submissions. Look at these guys' numbers. Okay, before, I'm not gonna go and compare both back and forth. I'm gonna do one and then the other. I'll start with Jamal, but just look at these numbers real quick. 58% KO rate, 7 out of Jamal's 12 wins are KO, and then 41% of his wins are by decision. So 5 out of his 12 wins. Then you look at Alex Bejeda. 0 submissions, 7 out of his 9 wins are KO, 2 out of his 9 wins are decision. Look at the numbers here, folks. Just look at the numbers there. They'll be up here, okay? With numbers like this, it's guaranteed to be a great fight. You either know it's going to go to a decision or you either know it's going to be someone getting knocked out. These guys don't wrestle. These guys don't grapple each other. These guys aren't trying to get a submission, really. We know these guys' game. So let's start with Jamal Hill, right? 32 years old, still in his prime years. Fought once in 23 against Glover Teixeira, won it against him for the light heavyweight belt and had to vacate. Coming off of an injury, but apparently he's recovered. But if we just go back, Thiago Santos, TKO, elbows in the round 4. He can go the later rounds. Went to 4 rounds with Thiago Santos, very competitive fight. Went the decision with Glover Teixeira, who's just always in your face, always pushing the pressure. Went to a decision with him, 5 rounds. He can go 5 rounds. He's a young, I don't want to say young, he's in his prime years, prime guy, can go the distance and can knock you out. Johnny Walker put him out quick, who's an absolute animal on the feet. Jimmy Crew put him out. Ovin St. Preux, putting them all out. And he's been doing that since the Contender Series. Now, he did come off of the injury. I would say that's probably the biggest factor. He hasn't had as much octagon time, but I'm still not counting him out. I'm hoping that if he's recovered, then he's going to be as good as new right? I don't know how much he's been training. I don't know when he got off the surgery and was able to just get right back into the gym. But if he was able to get back in quick, I'd say he's got a good chance of beating him. He doesn't finish fights as quickly, but he's a little bit. I think plays it a lot more safe than Alex does. Alex is generally, these guys are both going to push forward pressure, but Alex is generally the guy that pushes the offense generally. But it might be coming from both ways now. It might be both guys running towards each other. But let's go over to Alex real quick. 77.8% KO rate. Like I said earlier, went through Iyeri in his last fight in MSG, round 2. Put him out with the elbows. Jan Blachowicz won by split decision. Lost to Izzy, but look, he fought 3 times in 23. 3 times. And then he fought Izzy, beat Strickland. I mean, come on, guys. He's just running through the top competition. But if you look at his last 5 fights, right? He fought Izzy twice out of those last 5 fights, and then Sean, and then Jan, and then Yuri. He's fought some really high-level competition, but he hasn't fought a Jamal Hill, who is a little more careful on the feet based off of his last outing. Yuri, kind of sloppy. If we looked at his last fight, he can land a lot. He landed a lot on Alex in that first round. I think he won it, honestly. He landed a lot, but it was sloppy. He would get caught moving in on him, and Jamal's got to be cautious of moving in on him, because if you move in on Alex the wrong way, it's not going to end well for you. The only way we have seen Alex Bejeda been beaten is from Izzy, the counter striking. Izzy's strong suit is counter striking. He was cutting down to 185 when he lost to Israel, but still, he lost by pushing the pressure. Izzy was shelling up. He was opening up, throwing hooks to the body. Izzy came back to him. He rocked him, and then he put him out again after another one. So if Alex Bejeda is going to rush in like he did against Izzy, it's not going to end well for him, most likely. Jamal Hill's got power. We've seen it. He's put people out. That's why I think this is going to be a lot more of a longer fight, a more composed fight, because we've seen how to beat him. He can be put out. He can be knocked out. It's not impossible. It's just a matter of getting him in a vulnerable position like that, because once he gets into that aggressive offensive state where he's coming on you, pushing you with the body shots, getting you up against the cage, that's probably your best moment to land something. He's throwing constant leg kicks. If you're in the center of the octagon, rotating around the octagon with him, it's probably not going to land anything. He's very good defensively on the feet. If anything, you're going to need to catch him off guard. That's how I'd say for Jamal Hill. But Alex Bejeda, he's got that power. He's going to be waiting for Jamal. He's going to be ready for him. So I don't know how aggressively he will be pushing Jamal, but I will say that Jamal rushes in too quick. If he does that, it's not going to end well for him. But if he plays a more composed fight, I could see him probably winning by decision, because I don't know how aggressive or the strikes he's going to land against him in the first couple of rounds are going to be. That's just my prediction. I want to go with, it's so hard. I want to go with Bejeda on this one. Part of me tugging at me. My gut is saying go with Jamal, but going with Jamal, I'm going off of a layoff. I mean, even though he was a champion and he's still young in his prime years, a lot of the times when fighters are coming off of injuries, they can't pull it off. It's like I need to make a statistic based off of all the facts of fighters who've come off of injuries and tried to come back. Generally doesn't end well for them. Generally doesn't. They generally can never get back to that status that they were once at. So I'm going to go with Alex Bejeda on this one. Now, it's easy for me to say, oh, it'll probably be a knockout in the later rounds, but I wouldn't be surprised if I saw Alex take him to a decision at all. Alex can go the distance. He can put that foot on the pedal and the gas in the later rounds. He can definitely do that. We saw that in the first Izzy fight, even when he was down, right? And he's not cutting weight. He's not cutting down to 185. He's in his prime weight class. This is the weight class for him. He belongs in the light heavyweight weight class. That honestly might be his best area for him. So I'm going to go with Alex Bejeda on this one, probably by decision if it's a decisive fight. Very touch and go here on the feet. The way the caliber of this fight, the UFC 300, you don't want to go get put out too soon. So I think they're going to be very decisive about how they take this fight, but I'm going to go with Alex Bejeda on this one. That is all I got for the UFC 300 predictions video. I've got some more content coming, guys, soon, but this is going to be a good video. I'll be making some clips from this. Let me know if you guys are looking to see anything else on the MMA world covered, because I'm always open to ideas of covering stuff in this sport. So let me know. Leave a comment. That's all I got for you. So if you got any recommendations of content you'd like to see or fighters you'd like me to cover, let me know. I will cover them. I just want to know what you guys are looking forward to hearing. So I'll catch you next time. See you later.
Is there no one else? Is there no one else?